A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
Hey, Herman and Corn. So I was so impressed by the episode about outdoor microphones for Bluetooth that I thought I would hit you up with another obscure audio search that I haven't been able to make much progress on myself. So at the moment, there are times when I'm spending a few hours with Ezra around the house, and sometimes in the middle of the night he wakes up, and I love to be able to listen to a podcast. But we have a small place, and I do sometimes hear complaints that Herman and Corn, those darn two animals again, they're too loud, I can't sleep. So for that reason, an earphone would be useful. During the Iran war last summer, I actually discovered the advantage of single ear earbuds. Very underrated if you are trying to listen to the news. Like we were listening to the national broadcaster, but you want to keep one ear open, literally, for safety, or in this case, so that I'm a responsible parent. They're very useful. So what I was looking for, the other thing that I would like, and I think it's very much the same use case, is I have these nothing earbuds, but they always feel like they're about to fall out, and sometimes they do. I tried the different sizes of the ear, whatever they're called, those ear fittings, and it's never, I don't know, it falls out. And I'd love to be able to, when I'm going around the house, doing other things, and especially sorting through DIY stuff or boxes like we're doing now with decluttering, I want to be able to listen without thinking that if I move my head too far in this direction, the earbud will fall out. So here's my spec. I'd like to find a Bluetooth wireless earbud that is explicitly a single earpiece. There's only one. Not something that is a conventional one that you can supports a single use mode. I want something that the whole product is just one. And ideally, I was thinking, because my whole rationale for wanting this is sort of what you might call situational awareness, like literally keeping one ear open. In the world of broadcast and video, there's something called IFB earpieces that is sort of a bit like what I'm thinking about. Because a key criterion would be something that will really stay in your ear. It's not going to just fall out casually. And something not super goofy looking, right? So not like, those big sport ones with the kind of big clip around the back of the ear. They do work well as mechanisms for holding it in place, but I think they're kind of ugly looking. Maybe one that is complexion colored or has some different fastening mechanism. And finally, one that has decent battery life, because let's say, whether in the context of listening to podcasts or maybe listening to the news for many hours at a time, you want something that will last, basically. So that's what I'm thinking about. And looking at the headphone selection in my local tech store, the esteemed Ivory, as usual, I can't find quite the thing. I guess my spec is a little bit extremely specific. So Herman and Corn, does anyone actually make decent single ear earbuds, wireless earbuds, intended for people who don't want to just use one half of a product, but actually use the full product? And my reason for wanting that is I feel like you're always better if you have a very specific need. One of my maxims in technology purchases: find someone that gets it and makes a product for it, instead of trying to use something in a different way. I guess it would be useful as well because the charging case would be focused on replenishing just this one earbud, and could be even a bit more compact because it's only half the size. So Herman and Corn, any recommendations for the very niche thing that I'm looking for? I have relatives coming from the US soon, so I'd love to get those recommendations, especially if it's available from Amazon.com. It would be potentially an option.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to my weird prompts. I am Corn, and as always, I am joined by my brother and our resident deep diver into all things technical, obscure, and occasionally over-engineered. How are you doing today, Herman?
Herman Poppleberry at your service. It is great to be back in the studio, Corn. I have been spending a lot of time lately looking at the intersection of hardware design and human ergonomics, what the industry calls the human-machine interface. It is fascinating how we are moving away from devices we hold to devices we wear, and that transition creates some very unique engineering challenges. So, today's topic is right up my alley.
Well, that is perfect timing because today's prompt from Daniel is about a very specific piece of audio hardware that sits right at that intersection. Daniel sent us a message asking for recommendations for a high-quality, single-ear Bluetooth earbud. He is looking for something designed specifically for single-ear use, so he can keep one ear open for situational awareness. Specifically, he mentioned he needs to stay alert while parenting little Ezra, or doing chores around the house. He is currently based in Jerusalem, so he is dealing with a bit of a warmer climate and a lot of movement.
That is such a relatable use case, and honestly, a very smart one. Since Ezra was born last July, I can imagine Daniel's audio needs have shifted quite a bit. You want to hear your podcast or the news, but you absolutely cannot miss the sound of a baby waking up, a pot boiling over, or someone knocking at the door. It is a safety issue as much as a convenience issue. In the world of acoustics, we call this the dual-tasking auditory environment, and it is much harder for the brain to process than people realize.
And Daniel was very specific about the specs. He wants something discreet, so no big bulky sport hooks over the ear. He does not want to look like he is wearing a piece of heavy machinery. It needs to be secure enough to stay in while he is moving around doing house stuff, scrubbing floors, leaning over a crib, maybe even a bit of light gardening. It needs great battery life and a compact charging case. And, crucially for Daniel, he is looking for something he can grab on Amazon.
It is interesting because the market has moved so heavily toward true wireless stereo buds where you get two of them. Most people just use one and leave the other in the case, but Daniel makes a great point in his prompt. He wants something where the whole product is designed for that single ear experience. He even mentioned broadcast IFB earpieces, which are those interruptible foldback monitors you see news anchors wearing. That is a very specific professional standard to aim for in a consumer product. Those IFBs are designed for clarity and long-term comfort, often using a coiled acoustic tube.
I think we should start by talking about why the single-ear approach is actually superior for what he is doing compared to just using one half of a stereo pair. Most people think transparency mode on high-end earbuds solves the awareness problem. You know, the feature where the microphones pipe in the outside world. But in my experience, it is never quite the same as having a truly open ear.
You are 100% right. Transparency mode, or hear-through, uses external microphones to capture the environment and play it back through the driver, but that introduces a few problems. First, there is always a tiny bit of latency, even if it is just a few milliseconds. It can feel slightly off, like the world is a fraction of a second behind. Second, the microphones often struggle with wind noise or sudden loud sounds, which can be jarring, but the biggest issue is the occlusion effect. When you plug your ear canal with a silicon tip, your own voice sounds boomy and muffled inside your head. If Daniel is trying to talk to Hannah or soothe Ezra while wearing a bud in transparency mode, his own voice is going to sound distorted to him. It is that talking in a tunnel feeling.
That is a great point. The plugged-up feeling is hard to get around with software. Having one ear completely free means your brain can process spatial audio cues naturally. You know exactly where a sound is coming from in the house. When you have a bud in transparency mode, the directional accuracy is often diminished because the microphones are not positioned exactly where your eardrum is. Your pinna. The outer part of your ear is designed to funnel sound in a way that helps you localize it. If you cover that up, you lose that biological advantage.
Right, and Daniel mentioned he has been using those nothing earbuds, but they keep falling out. That is a common complaint with that specific design. They rely heavily on a shallow seal in the ear canal. If your ear shape does not perfectly match their mold, they just slide out the moment you tilt your head or start scrubbing a floor. For chores and parenting, you need a mechanical lock of some kind, even without those big ugly hooks Daniel wants to avoid. We need to look at the anatomy of the ear, the concha, and the tragus to find a bud that stays put.
So if we are looking for a dedicated mono earbud that is high quality, Where do we even start? It feels like the classic Bluetooth headset, the kind people used to wear in their cars in the mid-2010s, has almost disappeared from the mainstream consumer market. You used to see them everywhere, but now everyone just has two white stems hanging out of their ears.
It has definitely become a niche. Most of the development in that space has moved toward professional office gear. Think of brands like Poly, which used to be Plantronics or Jabra. They still make dedicated mono headsets, but many of them are designed for call centers or office workers, so they have those long boom microphones. Daniel wants something discreet. He does not want to look like he is about to book a flight for someone or manage a tactical extraction while he is changing a diaper.
I think we should look at the technical specs of what makes a good monobud in 2026. We have seen some movement in Bluetooth LE audio recently. Does that change the game for single ear devices?
It absolutely does. Bluetooth Low Energy Audio, or LE audio, uses the LC3 codec. This is a massive upgrade over the old SBC codec we have been stuck with for years. LC3 can deliver much higher audio quality at lower bit rates. For a single earbud, this is huge because it means you can get better sound while using significantly less power. That translates directly into the battery life Daniel is asking for. If you find a bud that supports LC3, you might get 8 or 10 hours out of a tiny battery that used to only last 4. Plus, LE audio supports multi-stream, which makes the connection between the phone and a single bud much more stable.
And what about the physical fit? Daniel mentioned he tried different sizes of ear tips and it did not help. That suggests he might need something that uses the concha of the ear for stability, rather than just the canal. For those who don't know, the concha is that bowl-shaped part of the ear just outside the opening.
There are designs that use a small silicone wing or a fin that tucks under the ridge of your ear. It is much more discreet than a hook that goes over the top, but it provides that extra point of contact. When you are moving your head around, that wing keeps the bud from pivoting out of the canal. In 2026, we are seeing more biometric fits where the silicone is softer and more adaptive to different ear shapes.
We actually talked about the science of sound and how different ear shapes affect audio in episode 725. It is fascinating how much the physical geometry of the outer ear matters for both comfort and retention. If Daniel has a particularly smooth concha, he might struggle with standard designs.
It really does, and since Daniel is in Jerusalem, he is likely looking for something that can handle a bit of heat and movement without slipping out due to sweat or moisture. Jerusalem can get quite warm, and if he is doing chores, he is active. We need to look for an IP rating, at least IPX4, to ensure that sweat doesn't kill the electronics.
Let us look at some specific models that might fit the bill. I have seen some very small, almost invisible monobuds on the market lately. Some of them are marketed as sleep buds, but they have full Bluetooth functionality.
The sleep bud category is interesting, but the problem there is usually the microphone quality and the battery life. They are designed to play white noise for 8 hours, not necessarily to handle high-quality podcast streaming or two-way calls with good clarity. If Daniel is using this for the news or podcasts, he wants a driver that is tuned for vocal clarity. He needs something that can handle the mid-range frequencies where the human voice lives.
That is a good distinction. We covered choosing speakers for podcasts specifically in episode 725, and the same logic applies to earbuds. You do not want a smiley face frequency response where the bass and treble are boosted, but the mids are recessed. You want something mid-forward. If you are listening to a deep voice narrator or a high-pitched news anchor, you want that clarity.
For single ear listening, clarity is king. You are already at a disadvantage because you are only getting half the audio information, though most modern devices will automatically downmix stereo to mono when they detect only one bud is active. This is a software handshake that happens via the Bluetooth A2DP profile.
Wait, is that always true? I have definitely used some cheaper buds where I only heard the left channel of a podcast, and if the hosts were panned left and right, I missed half the conversation. It was like listening to a one-sided argument.
That is a common pitfall. High-quality buds from reputable brands use the Bluetooth protocol to communicate their status back to the phone. When the case tells the phone that the right bud is still docked, the phone's operating system should switch the output to mono. But some of the more obscure brands Daniel might find on Amazon might not handle that handshake correctly. That is why looking for a dedicated mono product or a very high-end stereo pair that has a robust mono mode is important.
Daniel specifically mentioned he wants a compact charging case. This is another area where the dedicated monobuds often fail. Many of them use a proprietary charging cable or a bulky cradle because they were designed for desks, not pockets.
Yeah, the office-style ones often have those magnetic vertical stands. Not helpful when you are out with Ezra in a stroller or trying to fit the case into a pair of jeans. We need something with a flip-top case that fits in a coin pocket.
Let us take a quick break to gather some thoughts on specific recommendations. I want to see if there is anything that bridges that gap between professional IFB quality and consumer convenience.
Corn? Sweetheart, are you there? It is Mum.
Oh, Mum, Dorothy, I am actually recording the show right now. We are right in the middle of a segment.
Oh, I am so sorry, dear. I did not mean to interrupt your little radio talk. I just wanted to ask if you had seen my green cardigan. I think I might have left it at your place when I visited last week. It is the one with the nice wooden buttons.
Hi, Dorothy. Hope you are doing well.
Oh, hello, Herman. You boys sound so professional. Corn, just check the hallway closet for me when you have a moment, would you? I do not want to be cold for my bridge club tonight.
I will check, Mum, I promise. But I really have to get back to the show now. We have thousands of people listening.
Of course, of course. Give my love to everyone. Bye now.
Sorry about that, everyone. My mother has a knack for timing. Where were we?
We were talking about the charging case and the need for a compact, pocketable design. I was just thinking about the Jabra Talk series. They have been the leaders in mono headsets for a long time. The Jabra Talk 45 and 65 are very popular. They are discreet, they have great noise cancellation for the microphones, and they are built to be worn all day. The Talk 65 is particularly impressive because it has two noise-canceling microphones that filter out 80% of background noise.
Those are good, but do they have that compact case Daniel wants? I remember the older ones just plugged in via micro USB directly into the headset.
You are right. The Talk 65 is great for battery, giving you about 10 hours, but it does not have a charging case in the way a pair of earbuds does. You have to plug it in. That might be a deal breaker for Daniel if he wants that. Drop it in the case and forget it convenience. However, in 2026, Jabra has released a Pro version of their monoline that finally includes a pocketable case. It is worth checking if that is available on Amazon Jerusalem.
What about the Poly Voyager 5200? That is often cited as the gold standard for mono headsets. It has a charging case, though it is a bit larger than an AirPod case.
The Voyager 5200 is an incredible piece of engineering. It has 4 microphones and a proprietary digital signal processor that cancels out wind noise like nothing else. If Daniel is outside in Jerusalem on a windy day, that is the one he wants. But it has that big over-the-ear hook. Daniel specifically said he wanted to avoid bulky sport hooks. The Voyager is very comfortable because it balances the weight behind the ear, but it is definitely not discreet. You look like a professional driver or a Secret Service agent.
Right. So we need something that sits entirely within the ear, or at least has a much smaller profile. There is a brand called Aaron that made some of the smallest buds in the world, but I am not sure about their current mono support.
Aaron was a pioneer, but they have struggled with connectivity in the past. If we look at what is available on Amazon right now, there is an interesting trend of mini or invisible earbuds. Most of them are generic, but a few brands like JLab have started making the JBuds Mini. Those are tiny. They come in a pair, but they are so small they are almost flush with the ear.
Can you buy them as a single?
Usually they come as a pair, but they are very affordable, often under $40. The case is one of the smallest on the market. It actually has a keychain loop on it. Daniel could just use one and keep the other as a spare for when the battery runs out on the first one. That effectively doubles his battery life. If he gets 6 hours per bud, that is 12 hours of total listening time without needing a wall outlet.
That is actually a clever workaround. If you have a pair of very small buds, you can cycle them. Use the left one until it hits 20%, then swap it for the right one. Since you are only using one at a time, you always have a fully charged backup in the case. This also prevents ear fatigue because you can switch ears every few hours.
And JLab is known for having a very secure fit with their cush fins. It is exactly that silicone wing we were talking about earlier. It sits in the fold of the ear and keeps it locked in place without a hook. For chores and moving around, that is a huge plus. They also have a very robust app that lets you customize the touch controls, which is important when you are only using one bud. You need to be able to play, pause, and skip with just one hand.
How is the audio quality, though? Daniel mentioned he wants high quality. Usually, these tiny buds sacrifice driver size for portability.
You are not going to get audiophile grade bass response from a 6mm driver in a tiny housing, but for podcasts and news, which seems to be Daniel's primary use case, it is perfectly adequate. The mid-range is clear, and they usually have a few built-in equalizer settings you can toggle. If he wants something higher end, he might look at the Sony Link buds.
I want to go back to that IFB mention Daniel made. For those who do not know, IFB stands for Interruptible Foldback. It is what news anchors use to hear their producers. They're usually clear coiled tubes or very discreet wired earpieces. There are actually some companies now making Bluetooth versions of these for the prosumer market.
Yes, brands like Shure or even some specialized tactical audio companies. The problem there is often the price and the complexity. They are designed for high interference environments and can cost hundreds of dollars. They also usually require a separate Bluetooth transmitter or a belt pack. It might be overkill for Daniel's chores. However, the look of an IFB is very discreet because the tube is clear. It is almost invisible against the skin.
Probably. But the form factor is what is interesting. That coiled tube look is iconic. It says, "I'm working," without being a big plastic blob.
True. But let us look at the battery life requirement. Daniel wants something that lasts. If he is listening to long podcasts or the news for hours, he needs at least 6 to 8 hours of continuous play. Many of the truly tiny invisible buds only get 3 or 4 hours because the physical battery is just so small. In 2026, battery density has improved, but physics is still physics.
That brings us back to the cycle idea. If the case is small enough to be in his pocket, a quick swap takes 10 seconds.
Another option that is very popular for single ear use, specifically for awareness, are bone conduction headsets. We talked about tech for sensory overload in episode 435, and bone conduction came up as a great way to keep your ears completely open. They work by vibrating the bones in your skull to send sound directly to the inner ear.
But those are definitely not discreet. They usually have a band that goes around the back of the head. Daniel specifically asked for an earbud.
You are right. I just wanted to mention it because the awareness factor is 100% there. But for discrete chores and parenting, a band around your head might get in the way, especially if you are leaning over a crib or wearing a hat. It can also interfere with glasses.
Let us talk about the nothing buds Daniel mentioned. He said they feel like they're about to fall out. Why is that? Is it just the shape?
Nothing uses a one-size-fits-most approach that is very similar to the original AirPods. It is a non-occlusive or semi-occlusive design. It does not go deep into the canal, it kind of hangs on the tragus and antitragus of the ear. If your ear is a little larger than their target demographic, there is nothing for the bud to grip onto. Gravity just wins. Especially if you are moving your jaw talking, eating, or even just breathing heavily while doing chores. The shape of your ear canal changes and the bud just pops out.
So for Daniel, he should look for something with a deep insertion, or at least a very high quality silicone tip that creates some friction.
Or a foam tip. Comply and other brands make memory foam tips that you can put on almost any earbud. You squeeze them, put them in, and they expand to fit your specific canal shape. It creates a much more secure fit than silicone. That might actually solve Daniel's problem with his current buds if he does not want to buy new ones. It is a $10 fix that can make a $100 pair of buds feel completely different.
That is a great practical tip, but he did seem keen on finding a dedicated single ear product. Is there anything from the big tech players? Sony? Bose? Samsung?
Sony has the Link Buds. Not the Link Buds S, but the original ones with the hole in the middle. They are designed specifically for situational awareness. They don't block the ear canal at all because there is literally a hole through the driver. It is a ring-shaped driver.
I remember those. They look like a little donut.
They are very discreet and they stay in surprisingly well because of a little silicone loop that tucks into the ear. They are sold as a pair, but they have excellent mono support. You can use either the left or the right independently. The only downside is that because they are open, the bass is almost non-existent, and in a noisy environment you might struggle to hear your podcast. If Ezra is crying or the vacuum is running, the link buds might be too open. You are fighting the noise floor of the room.
That is the trade-off, isn't it? The more awareness you have, the more the outside world competes with your audio. A single earbud in one ear and nothing in the other seems like the perfect balance because you get a clean audio signal in one ear and a clean environmental signal in the other. Your brain is actually very good at separating those two channels.
It is. It is called the cocktail party effect, or at least a version of it. Our brains can tune into one voice or one sound source while ignoring others. When you have two different signals coming into two different ears, your brain can switch focus almost instantly. This is much more natural than trying to process a mixed signal from a transparency mode microphone.
So, if we are looking on Amazon for Daniel and we want high quality, discreet, secure, and good battery, what is the Herman Poppleberry top pick?
If I am being honest, I think the best Pro option that fits his discrete requirement is the Jabra Talk series, specifically the new Talk 65 with the charging case if he can find it. It is small, it has a very slim profile, and it uses a clear plastic ear hook that is almost invisible from a distance. But if he really hates all hooks, I would go with the JLab JBuds Mini and just use them in mono mode. The value is unbeatable, and the fit is very secure thanks to those cush fins.
What about the Newbie or Glazada brands that show up all over Amazon? They look like the old school Bluetooth headsets but modernized. Are they any good?
They are hit or miss. Some of them have incredible battery life, like 20 or 30 hours of talk time, because they are a bit larger and can hold a bigger battery. But the audio quality for music or high-fidelity podcasts is often lacking. They are tuned for cell phone calls, which have a very limited frequency range, usually 300 Hz to 3.4 kHz. If Daniel is used to the sound quality of nothing or other modern buds, he might find those Amazon special mono headsets a bit tinny.
That makes sense. Quality is subjective, but once you are used to a certain level of clarity, it is hard to go back. It is like watching standard definition after you have seen 4K.
There is one more niche category, the ear cuff style earbuds. Brands like Shox and Huawei have been making these, and the Bose Ultra Open earbuds are the high-end version. They don't go in your ear at all, they clip onto the side of your ear like a piece of jewelry.
Oh, I have seen those. They look like a clip-on earring or a piece of high-tech jewelry.
The Bose Ultra Open earbuds are fascinating. They are very expensive, but they are incredibly discreet and provide 100% awareness because your ear canal is completely unobstructed. They use a flex band to clamp onto the outer edge of the ear. They are secure because they clamp on, but they are comfortable enough to wear for hours. Again, they come as a pair, but they work perfectly in mono.
Those Bose ones are very stylish. They look more like a tech accessory than a piece of audio gear. That might fit Daniel's discreet requirement perfectly. They don't look like a sport product or a business product. They just look modern.
They are probably the most premium feeling option. If Hannah wants to get him a nice gift, or if he wants to treat himself, those are top tier. But for chores? I would be worried about dropping a $300 earbud into a bucket of mop water or having it knocked off while playing with Ezra.
That is a very fair point. Chores are high-risk environments for electronics. I have lost more than one pair of buds to the kitchen sink.
Let us talk about the charging case again. Daniel mentioned he wanted it compact. The Bose and Shox cases are a bit larger because of that cuff shape. The JLab Mini case is truly the king of compactness. It is about the size of a large grape.
A grape? That is tiny.
It really is. You can put it on your keychain and you wouldn't even notice it. For someone like Daniel, who is likely carrying a lot of dad gear for Ezra diapers, wipes, toys, saving pocket space is a big win.
We actually did an episode on Buy It for Life. Gear, episode 520, where we talked about durability. When you're a parent, your gear takes a beating. You want something that can survive being dropped or grabbed by a curious toddler.
Ezra is only 7 months old, so he is not grabbing much yet, but by this time next year, everything within 3 feet of the ground is fair game. A tiny sturdy case is much better than a delicate glossy one, and the JLab case has a very rugged matte finish.
So to recap for Daniel, We have the Pro route with the Jabra Talk series. We have the Budget Secure route with the JLab JBuds Mini used in mono. And we have the Premium Awareness route with the Bose Ultra Open.
And don't forget the memory foam tip upgrade for his current buds. That might be the cheapest and most effective first step. If he likes the sound of his nothing buds, he might just need a better grip in his ear.
That is true. Sometimes the best new product is the one you already own, just slightly modified. It is more sustainable too.
I also want to mention the software side of this. Daniel is technically literate, so he might appreciate this. On both Android and iOS, there are accessibility settings to force mono audio. If he finds a bud he likes, but it is not handling the stereo to mono downmix correctly, he can just toggle that in his phone's settings. It ensures that both the left and right channels are combined into a single signal, so he never misses a word of a podcast conversation. On an iPhone, it is under Settings, then Accessibility, then Audio and Visual.
That is a great tip. I use that sometimes when I'm sharing an earbud with someone to listen to a song. It makes a big difference. It prevents that weird feeling where you only hear the drums and no vocals.
One more thing about the discrete requirement. Colors matter. Most of these products come in black or white, which stand out, but some brands are starting to offer nude or skin tone colors. If Daniel can find something that matches his complexion, it becomes almost invisible from a few feet away. JLab actually has a line called Go Airtones that are designed to match different skin tones.
That is getting back into the IFB territory. Those professional pieces are often flesh-colored for exactly that reason. They want the focus on the anchor's face, not the tech in their ear.
It is about blending in rather than making a fashion statement. For a dad in Jerusalem, blending in might be exactly what he wants.
This has been a really interesting look at a very specific niche. It is funny how as technology gets more advanced in stereo, everything becomes the norm. We find ourselves circling back to the utility of a single, reliable mono source. It is about being present in your actual life while still having access to your digital life.
It is the ultimate utility audio. It is not about immersion, it is about information. And in a busy life with a new baby and a house to run, information is what you need. You need to know if the baby is crying, if the timer is going off, and what is happening in the world.
Well, Daniel, I hope that gives you a few solid directions to look in. Whether you go for a dedicated mono headset or a tiny pair of buds you can cycle through, there are definitely options on Amazon that will fit the bill.
And give our best to Hannah and little Ezra. Maybe by the time Ezra is old enough for his own earbuds, we will have moved on to direct neural interfaces and we won't need to worry about them falling out of our ears. We will just think the audio into existence.
One can only hope. Or maybe we will just be wearing giant helmets. Who knows? The future is unpredictable.
Before we wrap up, I should mention that if you are interested in the more technical side of audio engineering, our episode 868 on Pro Mobile Mics for AI is a great companion listen. It covers some of the same ground regarding codecs and hardware limitations. We talk a lot about the LC3 codec there.
Definitely. And hey, if you've been enjoying the show, a quick review on your podcast app really helps us out. We love hearing from you, and it helps other people find the show. We are a small operation, and every review counts.
It really does. We read all the feedback, even the ones that tell me I am being too nerdy.
You can find my weird prompts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Our website is myweirdprompts.com, where you can find our full archive and a contact form if you want to send us a prompt like Daniel did. We love these specific hardware-focused questions.
You can also reach us directly at show@myweirdprompts.com. We are always looking for new topics to dive into.
And a quick shout out to Suno for our show music. It is amazing what you can generate with those tools these days. It really sets the mood.
It really does. All right, I think that covers it for today. I need to go help Corn find his mother's cardigan.
Thanks for listening to my weird prompts. I am Corn.
And I am Herman Poppleberry. We will see you next time.
Goodbye.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My weird prompts, that's the flows from slow